So welcome to this fourth session in the Unit 500 Leading People. In this session we're going to consider the role of equality, diversity and inclusion in the workplace. It's important not just because it's a legal requirement with consequences, but it makes the workplace fairer. It's a more pleasurable experience to work there, it's more amenable, and therefore people will be more productive. If we're fully inclusive in our leadership style, and we talked about that in the earlier sessions, we will get more engagement from our workforce, and it also ensures that the first couple of stages of motivation, say in Maslow and the hygiene factors in Hertzberg, are in place, along with focusing on things that come clear in British values such as rule of law, tolerance and respect, and individual liberty. There's lots of information out there, and I've included some documents in the resources around the ACAS guides in what it means for employers and employees, and some stuff from the Human Rights Commission employer guide. So we will just be overviewing these areas and taking a look at more of the practical meaning in what we need in the workplace when we're leading people. Right then, so the main aim for this session is really to understand equality, diversity and inclusion in the workplace. By the end of this session, you should be able to explain the differences between equality, diversity and inclusion, explain the responsibilities of organisations under current equality legislation, describe the potential consequences of not adhering to equality legislation, describe the role of a leader in ensuring that equality, diversity and inclusion policies and practices are embedded in the business practices, and then explain how to promote a culture where actual and potential discrimination is challenged. So, off we go. So let's firstly start by just making sure that we are clear on the differences between equality, diversity and inclusion, as they're often all lumped together. And although they're all inextricably linked, they need to be considered separately, as they have different aspects and they can fit into different parts of the business process. So the Human Rights Commission's definition, there on the screen, with particular mention of the particular characteristics. And we're talking there of the protected characteristics, and on the next slide we can look at those. So, as we just mentioned in the definition of equality, we have some protected characteristics, 9 of them under the Equality Act 2010, starting with race and ethnicity, disability, religion or belief, age, sexual orientation, gender reassignment, pregnancy and maternity, and marriage and civil partnership. Now there's a video in the resources which gives you descriptions of all of those if you feel you need to brush up on those before we move on. So look at that video if you feel need to, but it's not essential, and we'll move on to the next. So that was equality. What's the definition of diversity? Well, to me, it's about celebrating and respecting that we're all different. And the slide shows a definition from the business directory: similarities and differences among employees in terms of age, culture, background, physical abilities and disabilities, race, religion, sex and sexual orientation. I think from a business perspective, we need to remember that we're all different in our own way, and we've all got something special to add, and therefore add success to the organisation. The world, or the workplace in particular, would be so boring if we were all the same and we were all like robots. And finding out about cultures, attitudes, approaches, discovering the different way that people think is not only fascinating, but helps us solve problems better and improve performance. So let's also show some respect for difference. And finally, to inclusion. At its simplest, it is a state of being included, but it's a bit more complicated than that. In equality and diversity field, it promotes the idea that all people should be freely accommodated without restriction, with no limitations of any kind. It reinforces those British values again that we've talked about: democracy, individual liberty, respect and tolerance, and the rule of law. And here on the screen is a general definition of inclusion. So what do you think of that definition then? Does it cover the general gist of what it's all about? Yeah. Also, Other people, though, have gone on to describe it as more about the practice of ensuring that people feel that they belong, that they are engaged, that they are connected, irrespective of their race, gender, disability, or age, or any other attribute that you want to consider from the protected characteristics. For me, the best definition I've seen for business is the one on the screen now: a sense of belonging, feeling respected, valued for who we are, feeling a level of supportive energy and commitment from others so that you can do your best. And I think that sort of sums up what we've got to do as leaders for our staff, because that's what we want out of them. So now we know what they are. As leaders, what can we do? What must we do to ensure these things are upheld in our workplaces? The first thing we can do is remove discrimination and other barriers. That's barriers to involvement, to staff getting involved in things and being part of our workforce. The next thing is give equal access and opportunity to all, everybody across the board. And finally, we need to value all individuals for their input, because they've got a part to play. And if we can manage to do all these, we'll have a fairer workplace, and a fairer workplace will allow people to prosper and engage with us, and then we'll get what we want out of our team. So before we start considering what we can do about it and how we can go about it, let's look at the wide-ranging impact it has across the business areas. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it affects things such as recruitment and selection. It has an impact on our advertising and our marketing. It has a massive impact on our employees with things such as contracts, hours, pay, benefits, training, development, promotion, etc. It has an impact on the employee management we use and the flexibility and the recognition we offer. And it has an impact on things like dismissals and redundancy. And as I say, it in fact has an impact on everything. These are just some examples. So let's have a look at what sort of things we can be doing to make sure that equality, diversity and inclusion are well used in our workplace.